Hello learners, welcome back to the course on learning and development in organization. Welcome to the last lecture of the last module, where we'll be looking into the L&D's impact on organizational results typically. So it has been a very long journey. We have seen what learning and development is in a very detailed fashion. We've looked into a lot of elements, looked into a lot of tools. Of late, we have looked into a lot of practical scenarios, cases where learning and development is enhanced by technology. Today, we'll have a final discussion on the impact, and this will be the most crucial lecture. I am Dr. Cyril Issac. I'm an assistant professor at the School of Business, Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati. Now, when you talk about learning and development, specifically its impact, we have to start with analyzing L&D as a strategic lever. Now, the particular aspect of it being strategic itself is the long-term commitment that L&D is having on organizations. So, as the business environment becomes more volatile and complex, learning and development has emerged as a critical strategic function, moving well beyond its traditional role as a training provider. So when you talk about L&D as a strategic lever, I will say that learning and development today is seen as a core enabler, typically of organizational success, directly impacting performance, innovation, and agility. So when you talk about the strategic importance of learning and development, I have to talk about the strategic alignment part. Please note, this is a topic we have discussed a couple of modules ahead, but I'll try to revise it. Strategic alignment ensures that employee capabilities are aligned with evolving business priorities and market demands. So when you talk about the strategic alignment, you have to see that the employee capabilities are always in sync with the business priorities and the market demands specifically. The second typical factor that we have to consider when we look into L&D as a strategic lever is competitive advantage. Please note, competitive advantage means skilled and adaptable workforces help organizations innovate faster, deliver better customer experiences, and navigate disruption. And finally, you have the talent retention and engagement, which talks about opportunities for continuous learning and growth enhancement that give employees the required satisfaction, motivation, and retention. Let's understand how learning and development is shifting, or what are the transformational aspects concerning learning and development. So let's understand this from the key shifts in L&D landscape. If you look into the past focus of L&D vertical as such, mainly it was one of training programs. L&D typically has a strategic shift now towards a continuous capability building. So this is a word that I have used time and again within this course, and that is what the beauty of the entire shift is. If you look into the classroom and formal learning, you'll see that learning in the flow of work is what is the strategic shift that is happening. You look into the initial focus or the past focus, it was more of it being a cost center perspective, which is now changed to value and impact-oriented investment. Look into the standardized learning path, we'll see that it is more personalized and moving into adaptive learning journeys. And you look into the HR-led initiatives, if that was the past focus, now we are moving more into business integrated learning strategies. So the shift one, that is from training to capability building. If you look into L&D, it now aims to build capabilities that are sustainable, that are scalable, and closely linked to performance. So this is what the beauty of the shift is. It emphasizes critical thinking, it emphasizes on agility, and it emphasizes on cross-functional skills beyond technical knowledge. The second shift is more of an event-based towards a continuous learning. You look into this shift, you see that the movement towards embedded training or learning ecosystems that support ongoing skill development. An example could be, let's say, if you take the micro-learning integrated into project workflows, or let's say platforms like Microsoft Viva, this will be an event-based to continuous learning shift. The shift 3 is more from ROI-centric models to actually value creation models. So you see that traditional ROI metrics are giving way to broader value-based models that assess organizational impact, innovation potential, and employee growth. Now let's quickly look into the strategic outcomes of effective learning and development. When we talk about the strategic outcomes of effective learning and development, we have to start analyzing the business growth and innovation. Please note, it's all about accelerating the digital transformation and strategic execution. When we talk about the workforce readiness, it is all about the preparedness of employees for future roles and disruptive change. When we talk about the resilience and agility, it's more about the fostering of a growth mindset, enabling the rapid adaptation. And when we talk about the leadership development, it's all about building internal leadership pipelines, reducing the reliance on the external hires. And finally, we talk about the cultural transformation. It is all about the drive towards desired organizational behaviors and values specifically. Now let's quickly look into the areas of organizational impact. So when you look into this shift, I would like to give you some research insight here. As our study or as our course is heavily backed on empirical research, I would certainly use the study from Josh Bersin 2015, which says that organizations that invest in employee development outperform their competitors in productivity, in retention, and profitability. So to give you a bit of statistics from the particular research work, companies in top quartile of learning culture maturity are 92% more likely to innovate. They are 58% more prepared for future skills, and they are 17% more likely to be the market leaders in profitability. So if you get time, you go through Bersin by Deloitte 2015. So you will understand that there has been a significant shift in the impact. So this is what we are discussing today. Now let's look into the areas of organizational impact of learning and development. You will understand that learning and development is no longer seen as a support activity limited to training delivery, but in the modern organizational landscape, if you ask me, it is recognized as a strategic enabler, a point which I have already mentioned, that drives transformation, enhances human capital, and ensures organizational sustainability. So when we look into areas of organizational impact, we start with the employee performance and productivity part. How L&D drives it? Let's quickly look into that. Learning and development interventions aim to bridge skill gaps, enhance task proficiency, and reduce performance variability. So by enabling employees to understand their roles more deeply and execute tasks with great confidence, L&D enhances both quality and quantity of output. So effective training, if you ask me, training programs, they also streamline workflows and introduce the best practices across the departments. The evidence to this is clearly visible according to CIPD 2021. Organizations that embed continuous learning experience a 20 to 30% increase in employee productivity. That itself is instrumental. So skill enhancement through training has a direct link to operational efficiency and cost reduction. Now let's look into the second aspect, which is talent retention and engagement. How L&D drives it? Very quick answer. Career development opportunities through learning and development show employees that the organization values their growth. Learning acts as a motivational driver, especially among millennials and Gen Z who prioritize the personal development. So engaged employees are more loyal, they are less likely to leave and more willing to go the extra mile. So you look into the evidence part, you'll see that if you go through the Gallup 2019 report, found that organizations investing in development report 59% lower turnover. So this is what Gallup 2019 says, and what LinkedIn Learning 2023, it identifies lack of growth opportunities as a top reason for disengagement and job switching. So please understand how effective or how critical learning and development is. Now let's look into the leadership development and succession planning part. When you look into the leadership development and succession planning part, how L&D drives it? The answer would be systematic leadership development prepares high potential employees for future roles. So programs that are focused on strategic thinking, that are focused on decision making and emotional intelligence, they help groom leaders aligned with organizational culture. So you look into the succession planning, it becomes smoother when leadership competencies are nurtured internally. Let me have an evidence discussion here. The DDI Global Leadership Forecast 2021 shows that companies with leadership pipelines are 1.5 times more likely to outperform their peers. Now, let's quickly look into innovation and change agility. How L&D drives it. So in the fast-changing environments, agility is essential. So learning and development fosters a growth mindset and the ability to embrace ambiguity and change. So employees trained in critical thinking, employees trained in aspects like digital skills or innovation methods, they contribute more proactively to transformation efforts. So Peter Senge, 1990 itself, in the fifth discipline, he told categorically that a learning organization is one where people continuously expand their capacity to create desired results and innovate effectively. When we talk about the customer satisfaction, that will be another significant area for organizational impact of L&D. So we talk about the role of L&D, how it drives it. You'll see that well-trained employees are more confident. They are responsive and consistent in dealing with customers. So learning and development in product knowledge, be it in communication, be it in empathy or conflict resolution, directly influences the quality of customer experience. A clear evidence for this would be Quota 2012. The work suggested that the employee capability and engagement have a multiplier effect on customer satisfaction and loyalty. The sixth aspect which I would like to discuss today as part of areas of organizational impact on learning and development would be organizational culture. And how L&D drives it? We know that well-trained, critical L&D, learning and development, is vital. L&D, learning and development, is a key vehicle for reinforcing values, reinforcing behaviors and beliefs that constitute organizational culture. So typically the training programs help institutionalize ethics, diversity and inclusion, innovation, collaboration, and feedback practices. So learning also contributes to what we understand as psychological safety, where employees feel safe to express, contribute, and innovate. Let me give you some theoretical insights. Amy Edmondson, 1999, emphasized that psychological safety is foundational to team learning and motivation and innovation. Watkins Marsick, 1993, described a learning organization as one that promotes a culture of inquiry, dialogue, and continuous learning. Now it's time to look into some evidence-based outcomes of learning and development. We'll take some practical case studies here, which gives us evidence-based outcomes of learning and development. So evidence across industries and academic literature strongly supports the strategic and financial value of L&D initiatives. So if we look into some of the case, we'll understand. Typically, if we delve into this Accenture's digital learning strategy. Now please understand the overview first. Accenture, which is a global professional services firm, revamped its learning model by transitioning from traditional training to a digital-first, self-paced, and personalized learning ecosystem. So typically the key initiatives were that it leveraged the internal platforms and digital academies for AI, cloud, and data science. It created learning boards and communities to drive peer-to-peer learning. It integrated continuous feedback and micro-learning modules. When we look into the outcome part, in case of Accenture's digital learning strategy, you will see that over 90% of training hours were delivered digitally, reducing the travel, reducing the venue cost significantly. So Accenture typically reported an annual savings of 100 million USD in L&D related expenses only. So it increased learner satisfaction and course completion rates due to flexibility and relevance. So faster skills alignment with evolving client needs, especially in digital transformation domains, was vital outcome. So what is the takeaway? When you look into this particular case, strategically designed digital learning ecosystems can achieve cost efficiency, can achieve scale and agility without compromising the engagement or outcomes. So this, if you get time, please go through the Accenture Learning Annual Report 2020, which details on the same. So I've taken a snippet of that in terms of the case, and I have illustrated on the successful outcomes. Now, when you look into another case, we have to consider PwC's digital fitness app for upskilling purpose. So please understand, PwC launched a digital fitness app, which was to equip its global workforce with emerging tech skills ranging from AI and blockchain to design thinking and automation. So the key features included the mobile accessibility, the gamified platform, personalized learning paths based on digital fitness scores, focus on both technical and behavioral change, that is the agile mindsets. So what was the typical outcome that is of interest to us? Over 275,000 employees engaged with the platform globally. They significantly improved the digital confidence and readiness for tech-driven roles, and it helped the PwC transition smoothly to remote work during the pandemic, thanks to the pre-existing digital capabilities that were available. So it helped in creating a culture of self-directed learning, supported by social sharing and internal competitions. So the key takeaway or the key finding would be that self-driven, mobile-first learning platforms with gamification elements boost engagement, tech adoption, and behavioral change at scale. So please read this PwC Learning and Development Global Insights Report 2021 when you get time. You will have more insights into the case example where we look into the digital fitness app for upskilling. Now, before concluding, let me give you some insights from the research work. Meta-analysis on training effectiveness across industry, a study by Arthur et al. 2003. Gave us some findings that meta-analysis of 96 empirical studies were conducted on training effectiveness, and it was found that significant positive effects of training on job-related performance, with average effect sizes demonstrating clear impact across industries and job roles. We also saw the effect was stronger for cognitive learning. For cognitive learning, that is knowledge acquisition, and behavioral outcomes, that is skill application, than for effective outcomes. So you look into the effect, it was more for cognitive learning and behavioral outcomes than for effective outcomes like attitude. So the implication was well-structured training programs not only improve knowledge but translate into observable performance gains. Another study, if you have the time and bandwidth, go through American Society for Training and Development, ASTD, now known as ATD, 2006. Which looks into organizations into top quartile for training investment per employee in a particular study. and saw that 24% higher profit margins were there, 21.8% higher revenue per employee was there, 6% higher shareholder returns was there. So basically the implication or the outcome of the study was training investment correlates with financial performance. So not just as a cost center, but as a growth lever. Another example would be that of learning culture and business results. So if you get time, please go through Bersin by Deloitte, which I've already quoted, 2015. The key findings was that 92% were more likely to innovate in the organization after the training. 56% were more likely to be first to the market after the learning initiative. 52% were more productive and 17% more profitable than peers. So what drives this? The only answer to the question is continuous learning practices embedded in workflow, empowerment for self-directed development, and strong alignment between learning and business strategy. So if I have to conclude the entire discussions with respect to learning and development across 12 weeks, 30 hours, I will say that learning is not a one-time event. Please remember this. Learning is not a one-time event or a program. It's a continuous process. A word again and again which I have repeatedly used across the different modules, so that if nothing goes to you, if nothing is being taken in, at least you take away this continuous process as an end result or as an outcome. So learning is not a one-time event or program. It's a continuous process driven by curiosity, supported by culture, and sustained by commitment. I repeat, learning is not a one-time event or a program. It's a continuous process driven by curiosity, supported by culture, and sustained by commitment. This is my end note to all the lifelong learners. So if you are looking into excelling in learning and development, please note, it has to be a continuous process. You did this course, you got maybe some insight into it, some positive aspects, maybe some points, some aspects in your organization as part of your promotion, but it should not stop there. It should be, learning should always be a continuous process, and it should be driven by your curiosity. It should be driven by the commitment to the subject, or commitment to the discipline, or commitment to the area which we want to study. This is my end thought. This is where we stop the discussion on learning and development. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it was a good learning experience with you all. I hope you had the same interaction. We'll see more of this in the live sessions and other NPTEL courses. But please do note, learning should be a continuous process. Thank you for listening to me patiently. See you in some other course in the NPTEL platform or some other way. Till then, take care. All the best.